BTEC Applied Science, Unit 2, why didn't I get a pass merit distinction? This is a very important video. You must understand what you need to do to get a pass, what you need to do to get a merit, what you need to do to get a distinction. And you should really watch this video early in the course because you may not get another chance. So let's have a look. Now, the specification, you can download your own copy, basically tells the teacher how to run the course, what you need to know, what they're supposed to be teaching you. Now, Unit 2, there's 4 assignments, A, B, C, D. In Assignment A, which is what we're going to look at or use it as an example in this video, there are 2 tasks. Task 1 is a titration. You actually do a couple of titrations. And task 2 is colorimetry. Don't confuse that with task B, which is calorimetry, which is all about cooling curves. Task 2 in Assignment A is colorimetry. Yeah, color. So task 1 and task 2. And they are Assignment A. This summary of the unit, don't even look at it. It'll confuse the hell out of you. Okay? Basically, your teacher should teach you the theory that you need to know. So what they should really do is teach you a bit of chemistry. Before you start doing titrations and calculations, you need to understand what the hell you're doing. And you will have done some of this at GCSE, but basically you need to understand what titration is all about and be comfortable with using moles and working out concentrations and things. And you should have had a chance to practice doing some of these skills that you will need. Okay, checking the calibration of things, checking the calibration of the balances, checking calibration of volumetric glassware, things that measure the volumes of liquids. Okay, calibrating a pH meter. You should have practiced measuring pH. You should practice making up solutions accurately. You should practice actually doing a titration and performing a colorimetry and practice doing the calculations, putting your results in tables, plotting graphs if you need to, keeping proper records. Before you do the assignment, before you do the task, you should be able to do this stuff. Then your teacher will give you the assignment brief, which will include the assessment criteria. We'll talk about that in a minute. And on the assignment brief, there will be a start date and there will be a deadline, which is usually only a couple of weeks between them. A start date and a deadline. Okay, and if you are well prepared and you've practiced these techniques and you've done your own research, you should be champing at the bit, ready to dive in. Okay, now the assignment brief, the exam board will provide an assignment brief for the teacher to use. They might use their own, they probably won't. The assignment brief, does it vary from year to year? Possibly. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. And the assignment brief will give you these tasks in a context. In other words, you work for a big chemical company, and this chemical company has asked you to find out the concentration of this hydrochloric acid, blah, blah, some kind of context. Now, these are the assessment criteria, and these are on the assignment brief. But again, this isn't a checklist. One big mistake a lot of students do is they look at this, oh yeah, I've done AP1, yeah, I've done that, tick. AP2, yeah, I've done that, tick, yeah, I've done that. It's not a checklist. This is just for administration. It really, really doesn't tell you what you need to do. I'll tell you what does tell you what you need to do. And that's this. Find this in the specification. Look through it. Find this yourself. Essential information for assessment decisions. Okay, this is what you need to do for a pass, for a merit, for a distinction. Okay, now your teacher isn't allowed to give you a checklist. They can't give you a list saying blah 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 tick, blah 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 tick, blah 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 tick. They're not allowed to do that. Okay, this, however, is the closest thing to a checklist that you can get. And I would suggest you really study this carefully. And in fact, as a teacher, I used to use this to actually mark the students' work to decide, do they get a pass or a merit or a distinction? Very important. Now, let's look at the pass one to start with. Now, that doesn't look like a checklist to me. That's everything you need to do to get a pass, okay, for assignment A. What you can do is split it up. And, oh, look, it looks a bit more like a checklist now. This is a bit more useful. Okay, to get a pass grade, and by the way, you can't get a merit until you've done all the pass stuff, and you can't get a distinction until you've done all the pass and merit stuff. So you have to do all of these. To get a pass grade, you must do all of these, and there must be evidence in your report. I'll talk about the report in a bit. There must be evidence that you have done all of these, not most of them, all of them. There must be evidence. Notice I'm repeating myself. There must be evidence that you have done all of these. So evidence in your report, or for some of the practical things, the teacher will do like a checklist. Yeah, this student has done blah, 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 accurately and safely. But there must be evidence that you have done all of these. Okay, a little look at a few things which may not be obvious. These must be performed correctly to obtain reliable and valid outcomes. Reliable and valid basically means you've done it several times and you're getting the same results every time. When you do a titration, there's this thing about getting concurrent results. So you do a titration, you get a certain value, you do it again, it's slightly different. So do it more carefully. You do it again, you get the same value. You do it again, you get the same value. They are concurrent. You're getting the same result every time. And that means you're doing it reliably and your results are valid. Okay. Calibrating things, I mentioned it earlier, is an important part, and evidence that you have calibrated the balance, you've calibrated all of the pipette, the burettes that you're going to use to measure the volumes of things. You've calibrated the pH meter as well. Okay, calibrating is very important. I'm not going to go through all of it, but I will stress again, all of these things must be done. For a merit standard, now you could say, well, there's not much difference between the merit and the pass, but the difference is that you're doing it without having to be led by the nose. You've done research, you know what you're doing, minimal supervision, you get on with it and you do it, and you do it to a high degree of accuracy and precision. Okay? Skill and fluency. Learners will demonstrate skill and fluency. You do a good job of it. You take care with your work. You present your work well. They will be fully prepared. Okay? Reference material. You've done reference. You've watched a few YouTube videos and with evidence that you have. and you are prepared and you go in there and you do a really good job and you get good, accurate results. That's for a merit. For a distinction, this is mostly in the evaluation. Okay, you look at the work you've done and basically you've presented your work well, put your overall results in a table with other groups and discuss the difference. Did other groups get the same value for the unknown concentration as you did? Maybe put this in a table, work out the percentage difference, and then discuss why your results are close together or far apart. How might you have improved your procedure? Now, I would spend in your report a whole page on this, lots and lots of bullet points, as many as you can think of. How could you have done it better? Okay, how could you have done it more accurately? Would it have been taking more readings over a certain time? Would it mean making more repeats, doing it several times? Maybe using a different indicator? However, how could you have improved your procedure? Okay, and then a discussion of the hazards and how the risks were minimized, as well as doing a risk analysis. Discuss how you actually did it as safely as possible, how you might have done it a bit more safely as well. So for a distinction, you know, a distinction is worth an A level. Overall, a distinction in the extended certificate is worth an A level. So you've really got to produce quality, detailed work. Don't think, this'll do. Couple of scrappy sentences, hand that in, the teacher will be happy. You know, that's not going to get you something which is worth an A level. It's got to be really good, detailed, intelligent, well thought out stuff, well researched stuff. Answering a few questions. What if I don't understand what I am supposed to do? Well, before the start date, your teacher should have explained stuff to you, okay? If they didn't explain stuff well enough, then what you must do is ask, excuse me, miss, excuse me, sir, excuse me, Dave, could you explain this to me? I don't quite understand this. And this is before the start date. Ask, get them to explain it. Make sure that you understand exactly what you're doing. Do your own research. And you're going to have to, for a distinction, produce evidence of research, like a sources table. I'll talk about that in a minute. Research, okay? There's loads of videos of titrations. There's loads of videos of the titrations that you have to do on YouTube. Look them up. Am I allowed to work in a group? If possible, you should work on your own. If you've got a large class, then you can't really do that. If you are working in a group, that should just be for the bit where you are gathering evidence. You're gathering evidence together. You're gathering the actual results of the experiment, the points to plot on your graph. Everything else is your own work. Okay? If you hand in work which is the same as other people in the group, your teacher shouldn't accept it. And they can't afford to accept it either, because if it gets moderated down, then everybody in the whole class will go down. Okay? Basically, only for gathering evidence, only for the actual practical work, you can work with other people in a small group. How much help can my teacher give you? After the start date, very, very little. Okay? They can give you guidance. If they see that you're doing something wrong, then obviously they'll have a little word with you. If there's, have I set up this equipment properly? That kind of stuff, yes. Anything related to the assessment criteria after the start date, no. They're not actually allowed to give you any help whatsoever. Okay? Have I done enough for P1? They are not allowed to tell you. They'll tell you once they've assessed it, you're handed in work, but before that, no, they're not allowed to tell you. Okay. What will happen if my teacher thinks I have copied my work? Well, you have to sign a document saying that this is all my own work. And if it's obvious that, you and your mates have just done it as a joint exercise, your teacher is not allowed to accept it. Okay. And they can't afford to. If two people are in the moderation sample and the teacher doesn't know who's in the moderation sample, okay, or if you find something online and just copy it, then they will know. The person who is moderating, checking the teacher's marking, they will know. Okay, it is unacceptable. You are not allowed to do it. What happens if I miss the deadline? Well, you better have a good excuse, and you need to organize an extension before the deadline. If the deadline's in a week and you're feeling ill, you're in bed with flu, you must get in touch with your teacher and tell them. For any other reason, I missed the deadline because I was, in the pub all weekend. No, that doesn't work. Okay. What happens if I don't get the grade I need? I'll talk about resubmission in a bit. What are the deadlines for my college? Well, you should be given some kind of a guide. It should be clear to you what the deadlines are. It should be explained to you how BTEC works, how many assignments you will be given, how it's actually taught in your college. You should be given that at the beginning of the course. There should be an induction period at the beginning of the course explaining all of this to you. Okay, and it differs from college to college. So I can't tell you the answer to that because different colleges do it in different ways. Okay, before the start date, make sure you know exactly what you're supposed to do. Now, your report, what you hand in, I would suggest this overall structure, the assignment brief that you are given, at the front, the assignment brief. Then in assignment A, there are two tasks. There's the titrations, task 1, and then task 2 is the colorimetry. For each task, an introduction, okay? Explain what you are going to do and how you are going to do it. In your own words, show that you understand what you're supposed to be doing. Half a page, an introduction. A risk analysis. In the risk analysis, potential hazards, their consequences, and how you will avoid them. You don't have to think of all of the potential risks. Just a couple will do, actually. But there should be a risk analysis. Results, neat, in tables, properly formatted. The whole thing, I would say, should be done on a word processor, and then tables, do that in Excel. Graphs you can do by hand, or if you're good at doing graphs in Excel, then do them in Excel. Graphs, I would suggest, possibly best done by hand, but tables in Excel, everything else word processed. Okay, font size 11. Analysis, your calculations, your graphs, your overall conclusions. Evaluation, very, very important for distinction. I talked about that earlier. And then research, again for distinction, make sure you've done this. A list of the sources, what YouTube videos you watched, what other stuff, books, etc. you might have used, course guides, etc. A list of the sources and what information you got from them. Okay, if it's a YouTube video, give the URL, the address. And this is your report. Nice and neat, easily to read, in sections with little subheadings as well. Make it easy to read. Now, resubmission. If you don't get the grade that you wanted, your teacher may allow you to resubmit it. They don't have to. Okay, you may be allowed to resubmit it if your teacher thinks that you have a good chance of getting to the next level. So let's say they've given you a merit and you're absolutely nowhere near a distinction. They shouldn't allow you to resubmit. If you're almost at a distinction, if you're almost at a merit, if you're almost at a pass mark, then they may be allowed to let you resit it. But they can't give you a little checklist. Oh, you haven't done this bit, you haven't done this bit. All they can say is what assessment criteria you didn't get. And then it's up to you to figure out what you need to do to make it better. You must have met the original deadline. Okay. If there was a good reason why you didn't, as I said earlier, then they may give you an extension, but it must have been agreed in advance. Any extensions, in other words, before the deadline, if you're poorly, okay, if you have to leave the country and it's not your fault, then you must agree in advance. Email your teacher, get it sorted in advance. If you just miss the deadline, then the teacher shouldn't be allowed, the teacher isn't allowed to let you resubmit your work. Also, the work that you handed in was your own. If there's a question of copying, okay, either off other people in your class, if the other people in the group that you worked with, stuff that you have downloaded off the internet, if there's a question of that, they may not allow you to resubmit. They shouldn't allow you to resubmit. If they do allow you to resubmit, then you should get 15 working days to redo your assignment. And again, I'll say again, this is to achieve the next level. If you're on a pass and you're almost at a merit, then you're aiming for a merit. Yes. If you're on a merit and you're almost a distinction, then you're aiming for distinction. Okay. What happens if your resubmission doesn't achieve a pass grade? Then your teacher, and again, they don't have to let you do this. They will let you do this if they think you have a chance of getting a pass and they think you deserve it. Okay. Then your teacher might give you the opportunity to retake the assignment. But if you retake it, it will be a different assignment brief. It won't be the same assignment brief. And if you do a retake, you can only get a pass grade. That's very important. On a retake, you can only get a pass grade.